The Cleveland Browns pulled a rabbit out of the hat on Friday. No, it wasn't a move to pick up another player. It was a move to add a former NFL head coach as a consultant. Your emergency bonus episode of Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, and I appreciate you all who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd keeps growing. Make sure you don't miss out. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The show is always available. It's always free, wherever you get your podcasts. Cleveland Browns on Friday have reached agreement with former Tennessee Titans head coach Mike Vrabel to be a consultant for this team. Obviously, Mike has a good relationship with defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz. This is probably one of the first things where this comes of how this all got together. Jim Schwartz looking to get back in the NFL with the Tennessee Titans. Did the same thing for Mike Vrabel down in Tennessee before the Cleveland Browns hired him about a year and change ago to be the defensive coordinator here for the Cleveland Browns. Obviously a good working relationship. So someone who you have a lot of faith in and has done good things like Jim Schwartz has in a short time with the Cleveland Browns says, hey, Mike's a friend. He's a confidant. He's a really great football mind. Any chance we want to see if we can make this work? You run it past Kevin Stefanski, you run it past Andrew Berry, you kick it up to the boss, Jimmy Haslam, and Jimmy Haslam says, whatever needs to be done to make my team good. Okay, what do I got to do? Where do I sign? Certainly caught everybody, I definitely, as a surprise move. This is, look, we got a lot of moves that we hear and see that are coming. The Mary Kay Cabots of the world, she's spelling out stuff for us 10 days in advance. This one took everybody by just like a holy smokes atmosphere. Obviously, Coach Stefanski and Vrabel played against each other as early as this season. Browns and Tennessee have certainly played a lot against each other in the time that Kevin Stefanski's been the head coach here. So, you look at all of this and then, you realize, it's a way, to look out for the fraternity, the coaching fraternity. And for Kevin Stefanski, having another brain in the building is not the worst thing in the world. Obviously, Mike Vrabel has competed in the AFC for years now. He knows the AFC well. He knows the opponents the Browns are trying to beat. He has game planned for them himself, obviously. He has a small relationship with Deshaun Watson. Mike Vrabel was the defense coordinator in 2017 when Deshaun Watson was there for his rookie year. So again, you find things that you think can make your team better at the end of the day. And that was obviously the thought process behind this move. Vrabel is no, stranger to big games. Obviously went to the AFC Championship game in the 2021 season, ended up being named coach of the year that season. A team that went into New England, won a playoff game, went into Baltimore. Baltimore was a number one seed at that point coming off the bye week. They went in there and whipped them all around in Baltimore, eventually lost in the AFC Championship game to the Kansas City Chiefs, who did go on to win the Super Bowl. But see, this is kind of what I'm talking about here. He had a game plan to beat Lamar Jackson, lost 35-24 to the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a guy who's game planned a ton to try and stop Patrick Mahomes. You try to find anything that can make your team successful. And that's obviously what the thought process here was for the Browns. And the relationship between Jim Schwartz and obviously, Mike Vrabel was, a good working relationship. The two of them obviously have kept in touch. And then, there was Mike kind of just ended up in the game of musical chairs for head coaching positions, ended up with a guy without a seat, for 2024. The passion runs high in these type of guys. It's, as much as, you'd say, hey, I'm really looking forward to the time, with my wife, with my family, football is your life. Mike Vrabel is a football life, high school kid, obviously in Northeast Ohio, goes on to Ohio State, goes on to a glorious career. I do believe he is part of the 50th anniversary Patriots team, acknowledged as one of the better Patriot players of all time. Was a solid player on defense, found a role later in his career where they used him as a receiving tight end to assist. This is a really fun move. We're not really going to hear much from Mike Vrabel. We're not going to know what his influence overall is because that's what, consultants do. But I like this move. I like the fact that it's out of the box, and I like that the Browns did something, just basically out of the blue here. But you brought in a great, great football mind. There's more to it. We're going to talk about that here as it goes on. But your emergency Locked On Browns continues. Appreciate everybody for being along for the ride. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. If you had just 1 extra hour in a day, what would you do with it? Would you go take that run you always talk about? Would you just be selfish, take a nap? Or, your significant other's been bothering you about chores, and you know what? Let me pound some of those out. A ton of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. The question is, time for what? What would you actually do with that extra time if you had it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you and make it a priority. Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do more of it. I'm a balancing act in life between my work, between my family, between my mom, between my wife. And one thing I am guilty of is I don't take much time for myself. I don't think it's doing me harm. Fact is, it probably is doing me harm. If you're thinking of starting therapy, you should give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game in the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Jeff Lloyd, your bonus Locked On Browns continues. Big news today. Cleveland Browns go out and they make a move. They bring in former Tennessee Titans head coach Mike Vrabel. Mike is going to come in and do consulting for this team this year. We obviously just talked about what Mike has done in the past. As far as his accomplishments with Tennessee, still walks away from there. The Tennessee Titans with a winning record, keeping in mind he went 7-18 in his last 25 games. He still leaves Tennessee with a winning record. That is impressive. Keep in mind, they never gave him a legitimate quarterback. This success that he had down there was done with Ryan Tannehill and really, really good defense. Keep in mind, we all watched it unfold during the NFL draft. He watched his star wide receiver just get traded away to the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Mike handled it about as well as he could have. I think a lot of us would have handled it worse. But a new GM comes in and Rand Carthon, and obviously he wants to put his stamp on the team and he wants to build it his way, which leaves a guy like Vrabel kind of caught in the way. Tennessee was underachieving this year, which was to be expected, and they just decided it wasn't going to go on anymore. Mike Vrabel obviously becomes a coaching free agent, does not get the head coaching job he was looking for, and basically tossed to the side, so to speak. Now, Mike Vrabel is not here in any way to challenge for Kevin Stefanski's job. Coach Stefanski and Andrew Berry are about to get contract extensions, both of them. He is here to keep his mind sharp, help the Cleveland Browns, and obviously whatever help he gives them is something else he can put on the resume to hopefully getting back to a sideline in 2024. What's key here for me that I like is obviously there were whispers that maybe Jim Schwartz was going to get an opportunity to maybe go be a head coach. The defense fell apart. Obviously, Schwartz's name didn't really even come point of getting, offers or even interviews. But what if this Browns defense goes out in 2024 and plays even better than it did in 2023? Maybe those opportunities open up for Jim Schwartz. So you could have Jim Schwartz looking at head coaching jobs. You could have Mike Vrabel looking at head coaching jobs. Maybe Schwartz gets a job. Maybe Vrabel doesn't. And all of a sudden, Kevin Stefanski says, well, you've been here. You know the players. You know the personnel. You know what I'm looking for. You want to coach my defense in 2025, and maybe, who knows, next year the hiring cycle is the one where you'll get your next head coaching job. Or if Vrabel gets hired, and maybe you still have Jim Schwartz. So, it's not a terrible thing for the Browns to get another strong-minded, strong way he carries himself. Mike Vrabel don't take no crap for nobody. And this is not going to necessarily translate to games and obviously that type of thing, but you're going to get a guy in here who can flat out coach his butt off, was basically a Bill Belichick, mentored by Bill Belichick, learned the game while playing for him, learned how to follow the game, learn the game, understand the game, obviously defend opposing teams' offenses through Bill Belichick. And now you have just an extra mind at your disposal. And, if this is something Jim wanted, which most likely Jim Schwartz, this is kind of how it came to fruition. So if Kevin Stefanski says, hey, if you think this is going to help you do your job better, we're good. We're good. So bringing Mike Vrabel in was certainly an interesting move done here by the Browns today. Maybe to close out the weekend here. We've been going strong here. And, I actually thought we were going to be off today, but, we could not sit down and at least talk a little bit about this. It's a shorter episode. We're not going to do a full one, but, I just wanted you guys to get my thoughts here. I like the move. And look, for the Browns, it is, it's not getting to the playoffs. It's winning playoff games. It's getting to the AFC Championship game. That is the 2024 goal. Plain and simple. And if you need as many football minds as possible to help you get to that, I'm all for it. Mike Vrabel, part of the Cleveland Browns in a consulting role. I am Jeff Lloyd, your host here at Locked On Browns. I appreciate you all making Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd, if you're not part of it by now, get a new plan. Stay and subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available, always free wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on the LOB. Let's go Browns.